Well, as I said when I started this series of beginner music workshops, I want to keep things as simple as possible and as basic, and avoid having to post sidebar notes, and I'm using the key of G major to illustrate. I just want to say here, because as you progress, you know, things can get a bit boggling when it comes to this music theory, and I just want to stay away from that and try to explain things as simply as I possibly can. Now, in my recent video lessons, I have said that if you are improvising over a scale, and in this illustration the G scale, as long as the chords of the song are the natural chords built on the notes of the G scale, in your improvisation you can fairly safely play the G scale notes most of the time, and they will sit well and be congruent or harmonious with most of the chords most of the time. But notice that I have said most of the time. Now here's just a little trivia as introduction. As you know, the oldest musical scale is generally accepted as being the pentatonic scale. And in G, these notes of the G pentatonic major scale will be G, A, B, D, E, and G. Now, if you look at this scale, you will notice that there are no semitones. And this is one reason, if you use the pentatonic scale to improvise over the G major scale, the notes you play will work out very well. There will not be any dissonance when you play them over the naturally formed G major chords. But all Pythagoras came along in the late 6th century and discovered the 7-note scale, which has 2 notes implanted in the pentatonic scale, and this 7-note scale, called the heptatonic scale, very much in use these days. You know, it goes A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and G. And if you look at this scale, you notice that there are 2 semitones occurring between B and C and F sharp and G. Now, the semitone F sharp to G does not pose much of a problem because of where it occurs in the scale. In fact, this note, this F sharp note, the 7th note of the scale, has you know, each note of the scale has a name, and the 7th note of the scale is called the leading tone. And this F sharp note, you know, easily resolves to G, and it's right at the end of the scale. It doesn't really cause any problems. But when you get around now to the note C, which is following on B, and you have that semitone there occurring in the middle of the scale, you get some problems when this 4th note of the scale, which in G is the note C, is played over certain chords of the G scale. So this 4th note of the scale is called by some musicians as an avoid note. See, but this term avoid note is a concept that came up referring to what notes may sound wrong over a specific chord. Now, sometimes when you improvise, you may purposely want to play a dissonant note because it can add a particular flavor. But unless you purposely want to achieve that effect, the best way to handle this 4th note of the scale when playing it over certain chords is to play it as a semitone, right? Which you have learned from previous lessons here with me. That when you play a semitone or an outside note, what you do is you just play it quickly and move on, right? You don't rest on it or delay on it, you know? So, right. No. You know, I'm hurrying a little bit because of the time element. Excuse me if I seem to be rushing a little. But this 4th note rule is applicable to the fourth note of any major scale, right? So in C, the fourth note is F. In E, the fourth note is A, and so on, right? It means that when you are playing this fourth note in whatever particular key you're playing in, to be careful of it, to be watchful of it, because this fellow can be dissonant when played with over certain chords. Please note that this handle carefully fourth note is only a consonant problem when played with certain chords. Yeah, it's not a dissonance problem played over all chords. I mean, for example, if the chord being played is a chord that is built on the same fourth degree of the scale in G, if the chord is, say, G major 7, there's no problem playing the C note, right? But there will be a problem playing over certain other chords. And let's have an illustration. Let me see if I can bring up the camera here so that you can see the fretboard. I think I have it here. Watch this. Here is the G chord. Here is the chord G major 7. Okay? Now if you play the note B, see? That goes very well with the chord. Or if you play, for example, A, yeah, and you play G major 7, yeah, can't see the fretboard. I don't know, right? See, you see these notes harmonize pretty well, but watch it. Here's G major 7, and here's C. Ain't working. Yeah, G major 7, C note. Fourth note of the scale, not working. Suppose you took a chord like D major 7, which is this. Yeah, and if you play it, for example, A, goes very well, not a problem. But what happens when you play C? Doesn't work, see? Not working. You understand it? Okay. So, oh dear. Now, just by the way, I wanted to say something here. I'm looking at the clock. Let me try to put in as much as I can. Now, this is why, for example, you do not hear very much about 11th chords, right? You don't hear, for example, much about G11. And here's why. If you are stacking thirds, and you start with G, and you stack thirds and go up, you're going to get G, B, D, which is the G major triad. You add F sharp, you're going to get G major 7. You add A, you're going to get G9. Now if you went up and stacked another third, which would be the C note, following on the A there, you're going to get C11th. But you very seldom hear about C11th because it's a dissonant chord. Okay, so you don't hear it very often. What happens is musicians will drop that 11th note, and you can continue up again and add another third, which would be E, and then you would have C13th, right? I'm going to lay this out a little more carefully, even if I have to put it in the sidebar. So what all of this means is this: that when you're improvising and playing, watch out for the fourth degree of the scale. Just be cautious about it, because it can sound dissonant over certain of the chords, right? I think Mark Levine has it right when he prefers the term a handle with care note, because it is a better description than an avoid note. But anyhow, my time is up, and so therefore I have to close down here. Please check the sidebar notes. More time.